When we want to talk about something or someone whom we know truly or deeply, we often resort to the language of the heart. Helen Keller said, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart." Shakespeare wrote in Measure for Measure, "Go to your bosom, knock there, and ask your heart what it doth know." And Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher, famously said, "The heart has reasons which the reason cannot understand." When we try to express the way we know something truly or deeply or beautifully, we often turn to the metaphor and language of the heart. We do this in our religious language as well. We don't just want second-hand knowledge of religion. Abstract formulas and dusty dogmas won't sustain us for very long. We want first-hand experience. We want to know these things in our hearts. The best and most beautiful things in the world must be felt with the heart. We need to know them with our minds, but we also need to know them deeply with our own hearts. Jonathan Edwards, an 18th century American creative theologian, often used the phrase, "the sense of the heart," to talk about the way we truly know God. In Edwards' writings, Personal Narrative, he writes about his religious experience, and he says, "I walk alone in a solitary place in my Father's pasture for contemplation. And as I was walking there and looked up on the sky and clouds, there came into my mind a sweet sense of the glorious majesty and grace of God that I know not how to express. The appearance of everything was altered. There seemed to be, as it were, a calm, sweet cast or appearance of divine glory in almost everything." For Edwards, the sense of the heart is the key to true religion. There certainly is a rational knowledge of God, but without the sense of the heart, this knowledge seems abstract and cold, what Edwards refers to as notional knowledge. For Edwards, true religion is the actual experience of an inward sweetness of God, a sense of the heart in which we know the true beauty and mercy of God. And isn't that, if we are honest with ourselves, what we all really long for? Don't we all long for more than abstract, notional knowledge of God? Don't we all really want to truly know God, to experience God's inner sweetness, to have a sense of the beauty and mercy of God in our hearts as well as in our minds? Don't we all long for this sense of the heart? I think this is why Edwards says that true religion in great part consists in holy affections. These affections are not simply emotions or passions. They are what moves us from indifference to belief, and inclines our hearts to possess and grasp the wonder of God. True religion consists in holy affections. The best and most beautiful things in the world must be felt with the heart. In the Emmaus story this morning, we hear about some early disciples' hearts burning within them. A story about the sense of the heart. It's a great story that we hear during Eastertide about the risen Lord who accompanies a couple of disciples who are walking along a road to a town called Emmaus. What's interesting about the story is that they don't immediately recognize Jesus. They are blathering on about the events of late in Jerusalem, about Jesus and the other disciples, and they are quite frankly a bit astonished at how ill-informed this stranger walking along with them is. And as the story progresses, Jesus, still not recognized by his disciples, explains to them a little about the events that took place and the scriptures. And upon arriving in Emmaus, they still haven't recognized him as Jesus, but they invite him to stay with them in town. And at supper, Jesus takes bread, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to them. And finally, their eyes are opened and they recognize Jesus for who he truly is. After Jesus leaves them, they turn to one another, and what do they say? Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us? Were not our hearts burning within us? The sense of the heart. The disciples really didn't get it until they grasped it with their hearts. It's not just knowing about the events that took place. It's not even just knowing about the scriptures. It's knowing about them in a way in which their hearts, our hearts, burn within them. It's this type of knowledge, this sense of the heart that transforms them, transforms us, and allows all of us to perceive the reality of who this stranger truly is. It is the sense of the heart that allows them and hopefully allows us to recognize the Lord in our midst. True religion consists in holy affections. The best and most beautiful things in the world must be felt with the heart. And this is true, at least for me and hopefully most of you, all of you, hopefully. We love our Episcopal Church where we don't have to leave our brains at the door. But the Episcopal Church is also a church attuned to beauty, to the beauty of God's holiness. We shouldn't have to check our hearts at the door either. We need our heads and our hearts as we try to understand the totality of our human experience. Wherever we find ourselves, whether in church, in our homes, out in our communities, or out in nature like Jonathan Edwards, we need to pay attention to our hearts and our heads. We need to pay attention to those human experiences that give rise to holy affections. Pay attention to those experiences that gives us a sweet sense of the glorious majesty and grace of God. Pay attention to those experiences when you feel your hearts burning within you. It is precisely in these moments that we become of the Lord, that we become aware of the Lord, who is always with us and who is always accompanying us on our journey, no matter where we might be in that journey. Amen.